Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance podcast. My name is Seema Giri, your host. I'm an international speaker, best-selling and award-winning author, book writing mentor, publisher, and event producer. This podcast is about grit, perseverance, and I bring real-life stories to you of healing and transformational journeys so that you know that you can create a life on your own terms. Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance podcast. I'm so happy to be with you here today. I'm so glad you're joining me. Today we have a very special guest, Kamille Bauer. Kamille, I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Seema, for having me.
So before we get started with this exciting interview, we are going to do a grounding exercise so we can be totally 100% present with each other and with our listeners. So let's just close our eyes for a second and take a few deep cleansing breaths. And as you exhale, just exhale any tension, any worry, or anything that you were doing before you were getting here. Just let all of that go. And just feel into your body and just relax and see if there's any tension anywhere. And as you breathe, take your next deep breath, just breathe into that spot. Next, I would like you to bring your attention to your heart. And you may even want to place your hand over your heart just to bring more attention to it. And I would like for you to think of a happy moment. It can be from any part of your life. It could be earlier today, yesterday, in your childhood, any part of your life. And now I want you to relive it as if you're living it for the first time. Think of the people that were there, the joy, the bliss, the excitement, how it made you feel in your body, what kind of love and peace you were feeling at that time. The gratitude of having that blissful moment. And now you can have it again. Next, I would like you to bring your attention to the top of your head onto the crown chakra. And now I would like you to think of a second happy moment. And relive that as if you're experiencing it for the very first time. Again, remember, who were you with? What was your environment like? What were you feeling at that moment? Feel that again. That joy, that bliss, the excitement, the peaceful feeling that you felt at that time, the gratitude. And with that, I want you to think of what are the possibilities for you as you hear our conversation today. I don't believe in coincidences. We're all here together for a reason. There might be something that you may need to hear for yourself, or maybe even for someone else that you can share the information with. So open your heart and open your mind and just think of what are the possibilities that can come upon hearing our conversation today. And same for Kamille and I, to open up our hearts to see what is possible even for us as we receive from the listeners. And what is being called upon our heart today to share with our listeners so they can take their steps that they need to move forward in life. And with that, take in another deep breath. Exhale. And we're totally 100% present in the here and the now together. Let's open our eyes with a great big smile. Kamille, what was called upon your heart as you were doing that meditation?
How good it is to be able to reflect on peaceful, happy memories and how quickly it flips your energy and your soul and your heart, and it's available to everybody anytime. So
Yes.
thank you for that.
Thank you, thank you. And that's the beauty of it. We have access to this at any time in our life, at any moment, and it just takes a few minutes. Well, Kamille, I would like to formally introduce you to our listeners. So, Kamille Bauer is a vibrant happiness advocate and grief recovery expert. As a cancer widow, single mother of three, and a serial entrepreneur and businesswoman, her positive and humorous perspective on life through adversity has influenced tens of thousands around the world. Through her weekly podcast, Put On Your Big Girl Pants, and her YouTube channel, she has helped others that are discouraged and lonely know they're not alone. Kamille is a passionate advocate for happiness and loves to help others find hope and happiness. Welcome again, Kamille. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and take of your energy. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about grief and loss, turn setbacks to setups, and how to let your past refine you, not define you. I love that. I really love that. So Kamille, what gave you the perspective that you can be happy even if life is hard?
It took a lot of years to get to that point, to have that awakening. My husband's cancer, it was a 4-year battle. My baby was 8 months old. Our lives were turned upside down, and it took a good, year and a half of me being depressed and miserable most of the time to come to an awakening that, you know what, if I wait for my life to be perfect, or if I wait for cancer to be gone, to be happy, I might never be happy. And I could see the stress that put on my husband, every time we'd have every 3 months a scan come up, and then how let down we were. It was so freeing to me after that awakening. It was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're going to be happy even if cancer is in our life. And only then did it change the quality of our life. And we had it all along. And that was the part that I love to help people realize is happiness is always within reach.
That is so true. And I can totally relate with you because I was a caregiver to my mother who died from lung cancer, never smoked in her life, did all the healthy stuff, and see, she still got it. And to my sister-in-law who had breast cancer, who recently passed away too, with all of that. So I can really empathize and feel what you're saying is, you become so devastated with the news and with what your partner or a loved one is going through, and it's like the end of life for everyone at that moment. And then something clicks and says, wait a minute, we have time. We have whatever we have, and we can have that joy and have the peace and the love in this moment despite everything.
Mm-hmm.
Was there, and did anything particular happen for you to have that realization, or did you just get tired of being in that way of depression?
For me personally, I got tired. I know I was, have my baby weight after having a baby, and I always gave myself that rationalization. Oh, you have a baby. It's okay. You just had a baby. And I remember it was a year and a half. So going on 2 years old. And I was starting to rationalize my depression and tell myself as I'm eating my feelings, because food was my drug, that what am I doing to myself? My baby is 2. I didn't just have a baby. And fast forward, nothing has changed. I just am larger. And that's when I went to my higher power and was like, I can't continue living like this. Like, I have got to have a change. Like, what can I do? And when I plugged in to my higher power, that's when I got the guidance and direction of what I needed to do. And then it was just getting my husband, on board with that, which took less than half a second. And then I started to run, which I hated to run, hated it. And I was able to start having my perspective changed, because here's my sweet husband sitting on the couch who was all-state football, all-state baseball, and lost his scholarship because of cancer. And I couldn't rationalize I was tired, because he's sitting on the couch and post-surgery with drains and would do anything to go outside and run. So he became my motivation to be able to follow through with the guidance my higher power gave me. And as I did that, I was able to run, I started with a 5K, and then a half marathon, and then 2 full marathons. So it was baby steps, baby steps. But that definitely helped me. Instead of food being my drug, I tapped into that natural source of exercise and those endorphins helping to help as well change my perspective.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Yes, there are so many other ways that we can have that release versus the food, but that's the easiest go-to, because I think it's right there, it's right in the fridge, and you can do it constantly. But I imagine your husband probably felt even better watching you go through that, because I know when my sister-in-law and my mother were sick, they felt so bad that everyone else's life was limited because of them, because we're constantly taking care of them. And that just made it worse than even the actual illness. So I'm sure that did wonders for your husband and his being able to deal with his situation.
Yeah, he was able to be my cheerleader, and had the kids at the end of every finish line with their posters they made. He would get a playlist that he would design for me, on my iPod, and hand it to me on race day. And I had no idea, what would be on it until I was running, and it was such a fun way to kind of build those emotional support that we had for each other. And yeah, he was so proud of me that he knew I was giving back to myself, especially as a caregiver. And a mother and a business owner. I mean, at the end of the day, I had zero energy, and I could think of every excuse in the book to justify leaving myself off my list.
Yes.
And that's what left me in depression. And as I shifted and made myself that priority, I had more to give back, and more to give, and more love in my heart, and no resentment, and more peace.
That's beautiful. And at the end of the day, that's what makes it so much easier to handle the distress in your life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, what do you recommend for others how do they shift their perspective when they are in a crisis?
If you're experiencing a crisis, the number one thing that I deal with when I mentor a client is shifting their perspective. What are you focusing on currently? Are you focusing on the problem, or are you focusing on the blessing? And I know it's a cliche and adage, and you hear it all the time, but there is so much truth to what you focus on expands. Mm-hmm. And where you nurture will grow. And that for me completely changed my life. And that's how I'm able to help others transform through their hard times. Because if we walk through, okay, I know that's not going right, but what is going right? Because chances are someone's begging for the life you have right now, even with all the problems. And when people start to really change that focus, it fills your soul. It fills you up when you do have that gratitude. That would be step one. And step two, if you're experiencing a crisis, is try to do something outside yourself. Try to, and I know that's hard when you're a caregiver. So it would be, you just need to look in your community or in your home or in your network, because when you give to others, the law of energy, it comes back to you. And I learned that as I opened up and became vulnerable with others with my truth, then it gave them permission as well. And the gratitude they gave me just helped buoy me up and give me the energy to keep pushing forward and sharing my transformation with others, and what has helped me. And in turn, I've been able to, 7 years later, here I am. This is what I do, help others change in that dark place, that perspective, what they focus on and who they can give to.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because when your mind gets diverted from constantly what you're doing, and you're right, you get the energy from other people too, and you realize that there's so much more to life, and there's so much more that you can do despite what you are going through.
Yeah.
And that's very important for caregivers to remember, because they're just so focused on making the person they're taking care of so comfortable, they forget about themselves. And it's important to remember, and it's hard. It was really hard for me to think of myself thinking, oh, my mom or my sister in this situation, how can I think of myself? But when you take care of yourself and think of yourself, I find that you can do a better job in your caregiving.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I've seen it over and over. And even when you're flying on an airplane, what do they say? Put your oxygen on first. And that's essential in the day-to-day life. You need to put yourself first, and you can function better, you can give better, and you can live your purpose.
Exactly. And then you're also teaching your children, how to handle situations like that. Their children always learn more from watching you being in action than being told through words. Do you find that true? You're a mother of three.
Yeah, absolutely. I had seen that firsthand with an experience with my son who's in junior high, and we had moved, and he went to school. He was sitting by himself at lunch. He came home, was crying, and I just said, hey, see what you can do to reach out and see somebody else that's sitting by themselves. So sure enough, then, the subsequent days that follows, he reached out and had someone that was lonely too. Fast forward a year later, we switched a different school. The boundaries changed. Same thing again. And instead, he came to me like day 2, day 3, and was like, Mom, I did what you said last year, and I saw people all over that were sitting by themselves. And now we have a group of friends that sit together every week, and it just made me happy as a mom, knowing that he can listen to my words, but then also see how I try to include others in stuff that we do. The more the merrier, and he sees that. Um, and it's a good feeling as a parent, like, okay, he's watching, he's listening, and they always are. So
Yes, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. So you have a personal mentoring program. How does your mentoring program work, and where do listeners interested go to learn more for that information?
yeah, so you can go to my website, KamilleBauer.com, and there's a mentoring link. You can click on there and read about it, read the steps. But what I do is work on a weekly basis on a Zoom call, and help people find their purpose, put their self on their list, and help their overall quality of relationships with, number one, themselves, and then in turn with others. And that is, yeah, a 6-week program, a 12-week program, or a 6-month program.
Oh, wonderful. So, Camille, let's talk a little bit about when someone, you lost your husband, I lost my mom and my sister-in-law. The grief afterwards is one thing of doing all of these things when you're still caring for them while they're here with you. But as they pass transition, how does a caregiver transition themselves to?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question right there. It's very um, everybody wants to give you advice. Everybody wants to tell you what they think your grief should look like.
Yeah.
And for me, very surprising how much judgment I was given after the loss of my husband, um, with people's time frames or what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. If I'm grieving, it should look like this to their standards. And I teach a 6-week grief course as well, quarterly. And the number one thing I share is grief is so individual. It is like a fingerprint. Nobody's grief is the same. Their relationships, the level of intimacy, there are so many different layers and aspects that go into making yours unique, and just being able to show up for yourself in how you feel. The number one thing I would say is do not stuff your feelings. Like, don't, some people are like, I can't think about it right now. I'll just come back to it when I'm less busy, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it just permeates their life. But be true to those feelings. If you don't feel like going to a function, if you want to stay home and cry for the day, go for it. My tip is, if that day turns into a week, which turns into a month, then we need to consider you being able to function. But if you're being true to that feeling and honoring that loss that you are racked with, you will be able to move forward. And that is my goal with clients, is to help them grow through it, not stay stagnant. And the number one way is just being able to check in emotionally with yourself and give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling. Instead of, I don't know what it is in our society. People want to hurry and hand you a tissue and get you to stop. Like, it makes them uncomfortable, your grief. And it is so unfair. We need to be able to be true to how we feel and not cover it up to make others comfortable. So there again, there is stages as well, the 5 stages of grief. So there are things you can kind of benchmarks you can see and watch. But from my experience, it is like this melting pot. It's not sequential. It's not linear. It's a day by day, and just be gentle with yourself.
No, I totally agree. And the other thing that I realized when I was taking care of my mom was, when you're caring for someone who is essentially dying, you're grieving every single day.
Yep.
You're grieving every single day. So when they die on that day, it feels more like a relief for them that they're no longer in that pain. And for you too, because, you're tired at that point. You're so tired and exhausted, you can't almost feel that.
Yeah.
So because you're grieving every single day, upon their death, you might not be crying and sobbing like everyone else.
Absolutely. I can completely relate to that. I've been asked, is it easier to lose someone when they're going to die, or if they suddenly die? And I don't think there's an answer to that question at all, because there's pros and cons. But for me, Clint, when his cancer came back, it was 4 years and a dozen surgeries and experimental chemos. Mm-hmm. And our whole lives were wrapped up in his health. And he just didn't have cancer. We all had cancer. Yeah. And I did feel that shame that I didn't quite understand when he did pass away, that I did have this relief, right? That my whole routine wasn't centered on taking care of him, even though I love him endlessly. Yeah. But as I've grown into myself and into the love I have for him and the perspective I have, that was okay for me. There should be no shame for you if you are losing a loved one that you are taking care of, and you lose them and you feel that weight lifted off your shoulders, and that's okay. And it's not a lot of people want to acknowledge that or share it, because it does seem insensitive. But unless you're in that experience, you don't understand. And that is the most misrepresented thing for grief, is that people just don't understand. And that's why they judge. And it's people, closest to me, siblings, relatives that I experience so much judgment from. And it's out of love. They just don't know any better. Like they don't know. And I think I've had to learn a lot of grace. And that is what I teach a lot in my mentoring program, is you've got to give people grace. If they don't understand it, I acknowledge in my heart, like, I'm grateful that they don't get it. But it does hurt. It does sting. Somebody said, I could never remarry after my husband passed away. I love him too much. And this is a sibling of mine. And I remember going home and crying that day, because it was just like, I was dating, I'm dating, and it's just like, so what are you saying? Like, I don't love my husband as much as you love yours. And this person loves me deeply, and so she doesn't get it. And that's where I've had to come to, is just give her grace and be grateful that she doesn't know how I feel. But you need to get to that point in grief that you give people the grace and give yourself grace as well.
Yeah, giving yourself grace is the most important thing. I, at one point, thought that I was so insensitive and heartless because I wasn't crying like everyone else. But my kids and I were with her every single moment for like 9 months. My siblings were coming and going. So when they saw and heard the news, they had a different reaction, where they were just crying constantly, and I wasn't. And even afterwards, until I talked to someone and they said, no, you've been watching them die every single day, so your experience. And I was crying almost every single day. So by the time the inevitable happened, there weren't any more tears left. But that didn't mean that I was heartless. And I know so many people go through this, and so many people have this feeling, but they don't have that outlet. So I just want to have the listeners know that, like you said, Kamille, everyone's grief is different. And if you're a caregiver, it's okay to have that relief. That relief is not just for yourself, but it's for the person that you love, that they're out of their misery. Because having illness, having cancer, having chronic pain is extremely difficult to bear. Extremely. If it's hard for you to watch, imagine how much more difficult it is for the person actually going through that. So it's a relief of all kinds of things. So don't try to separate it, or don't try to put yourself down for that, because you did a wonderful job of caring for them. I think that's one of the toughest things to do, because you have to manage your emotions, you have to manage yourself, you have to manage them, because they're looking at you and your expression of how their life is turning out to be, or what they're going through. So I always had to be really positive and energetic, so my mom would feel that, yeah, things are okay, I'm not going worse, and I will pass. If when my time comes, it'll happen naturally and generally. So there's so many things that we have to manage we don't even realize, because you kick into automatic pilot and you just do what's needed. Right, Kamille?
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to just ignore those deep, deep, deep emotions when you are caregiving. I know my husband was emotionally so supportive and we had a good relationship, but I felt guilty sharing my true feelings with him, because he was going through so much emotionally and physically. And I know I felt like each tear that would drop down my cheek was like a guilt for him, right? Mm-hmm. So, I would go in my bathroom. The art of crying, I have got it down to a science of where you can go to and what you do to secretly cry. I would, in my shower, almost, nightly, if not 3 times a week for those 4 years, just that fear and anxiety, and it would just pour down my cheeks as did the water. And I couldn't really share my authentic pain with him, because I knew he was experiencing so much of his own. So I did have to fake it a little bit for his sake. And that was exhausting emotionally too. And if I were to rewind and go back, I would do the exact same thing because I didn't want to put him through more. But it does, it buries those feelings deep. And I had to find a way, or a friend on the side, my best friend since junior high, to call her up or go with her to really share my feelings so they didn't build up. And that is so important and crucial, is that, don't just go on autopilot. If at all, you can call your attention to yourself, to your feelings, and find a way to get those feelings out. Journaling, audio tape, or again, a good friend or a therapist, a trusted therapist or a mentor, somebody that you can get that hurt and pain out, because if not, it resides and lingers.
Yes, that's a very good point you brought up, Camille. Have your own support system. You are the support system for the person you're caregiving for, but you need to build your own support system throughout this thing. So throughout the journey, so you show up more stronger and you're able to sustain yourself. When I finished, that's such a hard way to say. When my mom passed away, or during the time, I had gone for a health checkup, and my doctor said that if you don't slow down and if you don't start taking care of yourself, you can have a stroke or a heart attack at any point. I just felt so guilty taking care of myself too, while I was taking care of my mom, because I had so much more options than she did, that I just didn't do it. And it got to that point, and then I would have been useless to my mom and my children. So you have to be very careful with that.
Yep. Yep. It weakens that grace. You got to be careful where you give yourself grace. And if that sways on the pendulum onto the side of you being lackadaisical with you and yourself, it will come back to bite you. It will swing the other way. And
Yeah.
I know for me, shakes and onion rings, like I have drowned my sorrows in sugar many a times. And always it comes back to degrade my soul and my energy immediately after. And I'm not to say that I don't relapse, but on the whole, I know that I need to put myself on the list, or else if I don't, and I add other things to make me feel good, I end up feeling worse and have less to give. And I'm ornerier with my kids, and angrier, resentful secretly that I'm running, here to football and picking you up here and doing all these things. And it's checking in like, why am I mad? Oh, okay, because I have no time for myself, or I haven't made time for myself.
Yeah.
And I have learned self-care is essential. It is not optional. It is essential to all the other relationships in your life. If your relationship with yourself isn't the best, then it ripples to everything else. And I'm so grateful for the hard times that I have been through. I have a thank you cancer list, that I have, and I look at it and remind myself of the growth that I have gained and the knowledge that we have because of the hard that I've been through. And that's what I love, to help others shift their mindset in that. And it is an opportunity to be a better version of you.
Definitely, definitely. I feel the same way. At what point did you feel that you wanted to be a happiness advocate and help others?
So we started a YouTube channel, and about a year before my husband passed away. And then after he passed, it was kind of like a cathartic way to vlog. I did a lot of video logs, and my YouTube channel is just my name, Kamille Bauer. And I mean, 3 days after he died, 10 days after he died, 17 days. And then, as I just thought it was just my little community that was going to plug in and just kind of see how I was and see how my kids were, it rippled out to the whole world, getting messages. Oh my gosh, thank you for making me feel like I'm not alone. I had no idea others felt the same as me. And as I kind of imagine a little breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel leading my way to my true purpose and what I was doing, each message that I got led me to the realization over the next year that that's my calling in my life, is to help others because of my experience and vulnerability and ability to have that compassion and empathy, that it's led me to doing what I do now. And being able to give a voice to the unsavory and the hard has really helped liberate people that are secretly dealing with the same issues.
Wow, that's beautiful. It is through these hard times that we discover what we are meant for and what's our purpose in life. It's kind of like, when you put iron in the fire, it gets molded in the way it's supposed to be. And that's what we're like. We're like the iron in the fire when we're in difficult times, and we come out better and stronger and together with the community and the support system that we have. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Kamille. This was so eye-opening and a learning experience. I've learned so much through you, and I hope our listeners have some great takeaways too. So listeners, make sure that you do take care of yourself. Self-care is really important. I always say that self-care is a necessity, not a luxury.
I love that.
And if you feel that you're feeling guilty taking care of yourself while your loved one has a serious illness, just know that when you take better care of yourself, you can take better care of your loved ones. And that's what they deserve. They deserve the best. And they deserve the best version of you. So that really helps taking care of yourself. And then after they pass, it's okay to feel the relief. It's okay to take care of yourself. And it's okay to pamper yourself. Actually, it's a necessity to pamper yourself after they've passed, because your body has been holding on to so much frustration and anger and fear and all the emotions that you were not able to share during the time of caregiving. So get yourself those massages to release those tensions. And I guarantee you, you won't even know the things that you were holding on to until you start deconstructing everything after your loved one passes or after they heal. That doesn't have to mean that they pass. After they heal or they pass, you have to take that time for yourself and get yourself back on track emotionally, physically, and mentally. Kamille, do you have any special gift for our listeners?
I do. So right now on my website is a free download. If you go to KamilleBauer.com, it's Why Surrendering to Grief is Essential. And it's a free downloadable printable that you could go through, as well as if you're not experiencing that grief, but you're just like life is hitting you and you're experiencing disappointment or loss, I have a free 4-day program on my website. You can opt into that. It's 4 days, 4 ways to turn setbacks into setups for success. And you can just opt into that on my website and get that free program. And I'm going to a video, and I'm coaching you every day with a printable workbook, and it's great.
That's beautiful. I think that's perfect. Thank you so much, Kamille, for providing that wonderful gift. And would you like to give any one word of advice that our listeners can put into action right away?
Do something for yourself today. Don't wait, and start before you're ready. So do it today. If you're listening, you are meant to hear this. Do something today for yourself that fills your cup, and you'll feel the difference it makes.
That's perfect. Don't wait. Do it today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much Kamille. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, until next time, this is Seema. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I know I did. Through this transformational journey, I hope you could see yourself taking similar steps breaking free to your brilliance and creating the life that you desire. Please subscribe to our Break Free to Brilliance podcast at your favorite listening place.